Hello, this is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast brought to you in association with the TalkSport Fan Network, which we're very proud to be on. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by former United youth player Phil Marsh to talk over the last week at Manchester United. If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your comments and questions in. If you're watching the replay, feel free to say hello. We do reply to every comment that we get. And also, if you're watching back on Twitter, I think that it should be airing on Twitter now. I'll just double check. Yep, looks like it is. If you're watching on Twitter, if you try and get your questions in underneath the tweet, I'll try and get as many as I can while we're live. So if you are watching live on Twitter, just comment underneath the tweet, and I'll try and get to any questions that you might have. Like I said, I'm joined by Phil Marsh. How are you doing, Phil? You all right?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Wayne. Good week for me. Back doing some training and stuff. So after a long layoff, I'm starting to sort of gradually feel like a little bit more normality and routines coming back into my life. But yeah, obviously, just good to be back doing a little bit, and obviously great to have the football back, albeit it wasn't a stellar performance on Monday night. But 3 points is 3 points, and yeah, as I say, just glad to have the football back.
Yeah, I don't know what you're saying. Not stellar performance. We'll get to that straight away. We'll talk about it. United 1, Wolves 0. Like I said, just give me a chance to catch up on Twitter. If you're watching on Twitter, feel free to ask us any questions underneath the tweet that the video's streaming in. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you just make a comment and then in the usual way, and then we'll get to that if we can. Okay, so United 1, Wolves 0. Phil, very much a case of, we were saying before, Wolves with the time wasting reputation, they've just changed the manager, and it's Gary O'Neill coming in and expecting there to be a lot of time wasted and everything like that. And really, it was a difficult watch. But Wolves, they were fairly adventurous. They couldn't really put the blame at their door for it being a poor game. That was really United looking sluggish, actually looking like it was an end of season game from last season. Looked really like it was the first preseason game, which is a bit of a surprise considering that we were quite vibrant against Lens in the last Old Trafford friendly. There was none of that against Wolves. It took a long time to get going. Really fortunate that Wolves were profligate with the finishing. And there were a few times where they broke through the midfield. I think United, what they really struggled with was the fact that Gary O'Neill had come in and it was going to be unpredictable the way that they were going to set up. And it took for a long period really for United to get settled into the game. If they ever really did, they had one good passage from which the goal came, and then really apart from that, for the last sort of 15 minutes, Wolves were attacking and they looked like they were playing against 10 men, the amount of space that they were creating. And you might put that down to Mount being a little bit anxious on his first Old Trafford game. Bruno not really complying with tactical instructions, a bit anxious to get on the score sheet or to add a second goal. Was leaving Casemiro in a difficult position, and he didn't have the best of games either. So, mixed bag all round, really. Rashford not really impressing as well. Really deflating even. But United won the game, and we'll get to Onana in a little bit as well. What did you? Well, in fact, we'll get to all the incidents like the goal and Onana in a little bit. But what did you think of the game overall? Do you think United deserved to win, or do you think they got away with it?
Yeah, I think firstly, just before we obviously move on to the United performance, I think it'd be a little bit unjust if we didn't mention and give credit to Wolves. I thought they was outstanding on the night. A totally really uncharacteristic performance, what I think a lot of us were expecting. I think, they was on the front foot. They was really lively. I think they won the majority of the individual battles on the night. And they was first to all the second balls. They looked stronger, fitter, sharper all over the pitch. So I think, maybe underestimating them a little bit on the night played into maybe some of the way that the game panned out. But just thought I'd give them a little plug on that because I thought he was very good on the night and very, very unlucky to not come away with anything from the game. Touching on ourselves, I thought, we started the game pretty slow and sort of didn't really look at the races from minute one for me. I thought the midfield was probably the biggest issue throughout the 90 minutes. I think Casemiro was sort of getting exposed and left at times on his own, and we've seen it, 3 or 4 times during the game. The Wolves midfield was, carrying the ball from their own half towards the edge of our 18-yard box, which shouldn't be happening. I think, part of that again is maybe down to the discipline of some of our midfielders. Maybe Mount should have realised on the maybe second or third time that was happening that he maybe needed to sit a little bit deeper and give a little bit more protection and help to Casemiro. But again, that maybe comes down to not giving Wolves the credit that they maybe deserves, and maybe a little bit sort of setting up in a way that you probably thought that wouldn't have been the case on the night, and just sort of not dealing with it during the game. The man management type of thing. So again, I think that comes down to the experienced players and the leaders on the pitch being able to sort that out and deal with that during the game, which didn't happen. I think overall, Wolves were far the better team. However, we did show little bits of resilience at times, and sort of got through them tricky spells without conceding. I think a lot of that, as well, came down to a little bit of luck and them not having that, proper centre forward who's going to maybe, be clinical and score the goals. But again, you do need a little bit of luck at times in games, and I think we did ride our luck, and when we did get that opportunity, it was a well taken goal. Wan-Bissaka got in a good area. I thought he was probably one of the only positives on the night. Really, I thought he had a decent game and sort of looked the most lively, if you like, and I thought it was a good little ball into an area where someone could go and attack it, and luckily Varane was in there and put that away. But yeah, it was definitely not a stellar performance. I thought a lot of players looked off the pace, looked sluggish, didn't look at the races. I think before the game I was happy that maybe Garnacho got the start, but obviously he was very underwhelming and didn't really live up to the billing, if you like, and sort of rise to the occasion, which can happen. He's a young lad. He's going to have ups and downs and maybe games where he doesn't sort of cut the mustard. But I think it was just one of them games where it's the first game, we'll come away from it and think we've got away with murder really and got the 3 points. But obviously we need to vastly improve and quickly, because I think the games are only going to get harder from here on in.
Yeah, Dan says, "Evening, Dan. Hope you're well. Looking forward to seeing you next week, mate." He says, "Do you think the players were not fit and ready? Was it anxiety, or perhaps we got the tactics wrong? Do you think a little bit of all of that, right, Phil? I mean, it's like fit. I mean, fitness might be a bit harsh, but the other two certainly."
I think a lot of it as well comes down to, we had a very hectic pre-season schedule, so there's a lot of travelling, there's a lot of games, there was a lot of players coming back from World Cups and whatever. So I think the pre-season was quite heavy. We played a lot of games, a lot of travelling. Some of the players, obviously there was a little break as well in between that, sort of before the season started. So again, that begs the question to have certain players not prepared themselves and looked after themselves in the best way that they could have done and got themselves in the best shape ready for the start of the season. You'd expect this day and age and sort of in a first game at Old Trafford, the players should have been chomping at the bit to come out and put on a performance and try and put a marker down really for the rest of the teams to look at us and say we're going to have a good go at it again this year after a sort of positive year last year, and showing that progression. But yeah, as I say, it didn't really work out that way. Obviously, you've got to put into consideration as well. There's new signings who's come in, so it's going to take a little bit of time to gel, and sort of for everyone to sort of find the feet and make them relationships work. But I just think it was a very, very flat and underwhelming performance. And as I say, we sort of was very, very lucky really to come away with the 3 points. I thought Wolves were at least, good for a point on the night. And as I say, we are going to have to improve massively, and whether that's a tinker in the formation or personnel against Tottenham, obviously we'll obviously time will tell with that. But I think certainly we need to step up the performance if we are going to get anything out of that game.
Yeah, it's funny looking at that. I mean, we'll talk about Onana in a minute, because obviously Onana deserves a comment section all of his own from us too for his mixed performance on Monday, which did get them the match, we should say. But yeah, I think throughout the team, if you look through it, you're damn right in terms of saying Wan-Bissaka was the best player. I thought he was outstanding. I know man of the match was given to him, but I thought Wan-Bissaka picked up where he left off last season, and I think that's evening Robbie will be doing all right, mate. I think that's the point for me, is that Wan-Bissaka, all of these players as individuals, apart from Varane and Martinez and Casemiro, because Casemiro's got his own. You might include Fernandes in this number as well. That they've got their own legacies in terms of like what they provide and everything like that. But there are a number of individuals like Shaw, even Rashford, with the new contracts and everything like that. These players who maybe have one good season and then one poor season. There's a lot of pressure on these players to sort of step up, but particularly a player like Shaw. That he was so good last season, and we've often said with Shaw, well, he's a great responder to competition, and now he might be looking at that and saying, this is my first team place. That's when he generally gets complacent. Or Rashford, there's room for complacency in his game, because there's you would think he's going to start somewhere across that forward line. He's possibly the only one who's guaranteed to start across that forward line. So you're looking at those players and really hoping that the complacency or the pressure of that the second season of like they played well, they're not going to play well, because they really, really need to kick on. There's a massive weight on their shoulders. I don't want to add to it, but it's there. You can't avoid that. For those two players in particular, Shaw and Rafa, they've really got to step up again, and they've got to add that consistency to their game. If United are, let's be frank, they're like Shaw is 10 years at the club. Rashford is sort of like 7 or 8 years into the first team now. We're talking about players who and I'm not saying this is like my level of expectancy, but the level of expectancy that's delivered by the club if they want long-term careers, or if Shaw is going to be remembered in the way that he wants to be remembered and that his talent is there to be, they've got to start challenging for titles. And yes, right, I don't think that the team or the squad is ready for that. I don't think we're good enough, because I think City are by far and away, for multiple reasons, they're the best squad and the best team that should be expected to win it. But from United's perspective, in terms of accumulating the level of consistency in the other 36 games, that's the weight of responsibility that's on those players. We know that in those 36 games, the points to win the title can be achieved. So as much as I will say that about City, it's still the point that the points are there to be won in the other games. And this is where these players are. And that's why I feel a little bit of sympathy for them on Monday night, because you're already starting as the 10th game. Everyone, Arsenal's already won, City have already won quite comfortably. Yeah, all right, Liverpool. And Spurs didn't, and Chelsea didn't, but the main two contenders for the title have already got points on the bag, and United are points on the board. United are expected to win well against an opponent that's traditionally frustrated them at Old Trafford, very much like a cat and mouse kind of thing. So I do have a little bit of sympathy in that regard. Let's talk about Onana then. Man of the match, he was officially given. Made some great saves. There was one that he made with his legs. I know David De Gea was great at saving with his body, like unorthodox saves all the time. But there was one that Onana made with his legs that I thought maybe in recent years David would have let in. So I thought, oh, all right, he's making unpredictable saves in that same kind of manner. And then, of course, there was a great pass out to Garnacho at one point, which started an attack, although we didn't do anything with it. And then there was the incident at the end where, if we're going to say you've seen them given, you might even flash back to that one that was Southampton last season where one wasn't given. But normally you look at that and I thought that's a penalty on first watch. All right. On second watch, I can see where people are making that argument that that he's won the ball kind of, or the ball's already gone. So, oh yeah, he didn't win the ball. The ball's already gone. So should it be a penalty? All that sort of stuff. I can see that argument, but I thought it should have been a penalty, and it would have probably then ended in a disappointing way for United and Onana. But what did you make of his debut?
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought his performance really overall was pretty solid. I thought his distribution was good. The saves that he did make, I thought, you'd expect a keeper of his calibre to make them saves, but, he dealt with everything pretty well. As I say, Wolves were probably the better team in terms of chances created and the chances they did have. When they did hit the target, he was up to the task. I thought, as I said, overall his performance was good. I agree. Obviously, the penalty for me was a penalty. I think he's sort of came and just into a bit of a no man's land and just probably thought he could get something on it, and he has clattered into the Wolves centre forward, and we have definitely got away with one there. I think for me personally, that's my own take on it. But again, with VAR decisions, you'll sort of get the rub of the green 1 week, and then in a couple of weeks' time, we'll probably get a decision where we're looking at it and saying what's going on. So I think they do even themselves out over the course of the season. So although from Wolves' point of view, you're probably fuming and kicking yourself that you haven't been given that decision and maybe come away with a point. I think throughout the season they do sort of even themselves out. So it could be a case where we're looking at one in a couple of weeks' time and saying, how's that been given, and we've probably dropped points. So yeah, but on Onana, yeah, I think he looked pretty solid. It was a good debut. As I say, a clean sheet on his debut would have been what he was looking for. Albeit with that penalty shout, probably overshadowing the sort of performance. But again, he can build on that, and I think he'll learn from that. I think that'll be a learning curve for him now with, coming for crosses. Maybe, sometimes I think as a goalkeeper, you want that from your goalkeeper where he's coming clattering people and trying to take people out and get the ball clear or whatever. But I think that one the other night was probably just because it was the last minute and it was sort of, a little bit frantic and Wolves were pushing for that equaliser. I think it was just a little bit maybe of rush of blood from him, and, he's just made a bit of a judgmental error, and we have got away with one there.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, a solid start in every other regard. He looked dominant in the box. He came for a lot of crosses and everything like that, and a lot of character, which you are going to need if you're a goalkeeper at Manchester United and want to succeed for sure. A couple of comments to get to. Stuart, evening mate, will be all right. If Lee Jettisons is again on next Friday's pod, I'll give you a shout out if you want to come on. But Lee, he's otherwise engaged at the moment again. He says, evening, Wayne and Phil. Agree totally with your assessment so far. Common sense during games is pivotal, but so is in-game reading, something we liked on Monday. Yeah, I don't know again if I put that down to the anxiety. And as well, when you've got a player like Garnacho, who his instinct is to run at players and try and get behind players. You've got Fernandez who tries the risky stuff, and then you've got Rashford who a lot of times a little bit like Rooney in a way. I know they're very different kind of players, but if they've got too much time on the ball, their deliberation often costs them. If you understand, that sounds like it's a bit of an oxymoron with players of that quality, but you would find it with Rooney. If they've got a second to shoot or a second to score, a second to make something happen, they generally do. Rashford's the same. If he's doing it, if he's got to do it very quickly, something good will generally happen. But if he's got time, often it can go down a blind alley. And United do have, like, when you've got three forwards like that, and Anthony as well, who is predominantly right side, then it does make it a little bit difficult for some of the players. Well, it did on Monday night, especially an opponent like Wolves are still defensively resolute, and they restricted United to very few chances, as can be proven by the fact that you've got a centre back going up and finding the space to score, and Wan-Bissaka breaking the line to make the assist. I mean, that says it all about how obstinate Wolves were in defence. Robbie says Onana was much deeper than in pre-season. Yeah, that's definitely true. He was. He started. I was looking for that, and definitely no chance of him getting lobbed from the halfway line this time round. And Robbie says, Phil, for the Brentford game, I don't know when that is. That's September, that isn't it? United have got a run of a few home games at Saturday at 3:00, which is a miracle. I can tell you that from last season. It was a rare thing. It always is a rare thing indeed. So next on the agenda is Spurs tomorrow, 5:30 kickoff afternoon, away from home. And they won't have Harry Kane. They drew 2-2 with Brentford. Very entertaining game last week, Phil. I don't know if you caught it. First half was a thriller minute, and then the second half was a bit dull as both teams sort of calmed down a little bit. Spurs do look enterprising. There's that element about their game you're curious about to see how they'll develop in post-Kane era. Will they become more, like we've always said with United, when they've lost a player, do they become more fluid as a result of losing a player? The problem with Harry Kane is he wasn't like a rigid number 9 like Ronaldo. He wasn't someone who's going to be a target man and completely alter the style of the play. He does that because he's a dominant player in terms of personality, but Kane did everything. He was a kind of player who would join in the build-up, and he was able to get on the end of everything. So a play like that is obviously going to change. It's like we're not losing, not exactly the same, but you'll know where I'm coming from. Like losing Ronaldo the first time round, or losing Rooney at his peak, like a player that instrumental in everything that the team does. So much so that I know Son was replaced him as captain, and he's been a great player, but even he just wouldn't have the same kind of influence as Kane. And there was a time when I would say that they were, you know what I mean, they were very close in terms of quality, but Kane became so influential over that last 3 years that as would a player of that quality, that they're obviously going to miss him. It's going to take some time to get used to playing without him, and that time isn't going to be learned in the space of a week. So that's a good thing for United as far as we're concerned going into the game. And the first home game without Kane, obviously they're going to be up for it, but he's going to be missing. So it's a big sort of opportunity for us to take advantage of that. Having said that, Wolves were good last week, and their organisation looks to be improving. I mean, there are a few Spurs fans who I do follow on social media, Phil, who talk about the work has kind of gone under the radar because it's been overshadowed by Kane now. I don't know if that's true. We're going to see that tomorrow. What are you expecting from this? Are you expecting it to be a little bit easier because we don't have Kane, or do you think that United ought to be cautious in what to expect?
No, I definitely think the latter. I think they do look like a good side. Even through pre-season, even though obviously Kane was still there, they did impress me. And I think with the players that they have still got, obviously Harry Kane was the main player. That's obvious to say, but I do think they have still got a lot of attacking quality. Kulusevski, Richarlison, and Son are 3 very good players, and on the day they can cause problems for any outfit. So. I think you add James Maddison into the mix as well now, who can obviously, create things and will, pick up them pockets in the midfield and look for them balls into them front 3. So, yeah, I think we're definitely going to have to be, up for it and sort of, that midfield battle will need to be, where it's won and lost. I think, obviously, the other night against Wolves, that was where we kept getting exposed time after time, and the gaps at some points in the game was ridiculous. So that will definitely need addressing. I think whether the manager tinkers with the 3 players that started the other night, or maybe reverts to a sort of different formation, possibly brings McTominay into that and just gives you that little bit more solid base and sort of protection in the midfield. For me, I think obviously Sancho will come back into the team for Garnacho, just on the basis that I think the other night he sort of struggled a little bit, and being a young player, you need to protect them at times and dip them in and out of the team. as and when. So I'm confident in the fact that I think, we can't really play any worse, and I'm hoping that we can, have a positive reaction from the other night, because I think that was a little bit of a kick up the backside, really, and the manager will be, wanting a lot better and a lot more from the players. So I think that will work in our favour. However, I think it will be a tougher game. Obviously, it's an away game at Tottenham, who aren't really, after Harry Kane leaving, are probably, people aren't tipping them to do much this season. They'll probably be, people saying they'll be happy probably to finish in the top 6, which, is sort of a frightening situation, really, because they've probably got nothing to lose. They can just, have a free hit this season, and, the expectations aren't probably there from everybody else. Whereas I think, in-house, they will be looking at it and saying, we could be a dark horse this year, because they have got a quality group of players on the day, and if they can get a little bit of consistency within that, they will be a good side this year for me.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that Kane went, happened. So I know that it was protracted, people talk about it all summer, but the speed in which the transfer happened caught me by surprise. I was like, oh God, he's going over there. Like, still thinking to a few of us, I know that Dan's one of them. We joke about it, me and Dan, that that United might still hijack the deal. As unlikely as that seemed, but that would have been the scenario where United might have done that because because Spurs had accepted an offer and they accepted it was going. So if United had come in with just like a little bit more, Kane might have dug in and done that. But
I was shocked myself, Wayne, to be honest, that he went. I do actually still think, though, that he sort of probably will come back maybe after a couple of years. I think he'll probably go over there and try and win a couple of trophies. I think he will definitely want to come back and sort of finish his career off in the Premier League and get that goal scoring record. Whether he goes back to Tottenham or whatever is yet to be seen. But I think that will be what is in his head, because I think he's obviously worked so hard to get to a point in his career where he's so close to breaking it, and I think it would be silly if he didn't try and get that and sort of finish his career off with sort of that to his name. Because, as I say, I think a lot of people look at professional footballers and base their careers on what they've won and how many trophies they've got and stuff like that. And I think for Harry, obviously being brought up at Tottenham, being at the club from such a young age, he's shown that loyalty, which a lot of is rare in this day and age. You don't really see a lot of loyalty in football anymore. But I do think that for him, he's probably done the thing what he thought, in terms of he will want to have some silverware to his name, and with Bayern Munich, the likelihood is he is going to win the Bundesliga and potentially have a couple of trophies maybe in the other domestic cups in Germany, and potentially a Champions League. So you can't blame him. Hopefully he does come back and break the record, because I do rate him very highly as a player. I was quite upset and gutted, really, we didn't put that late bid in and bring him in, because I think he would have catapulted us to even higher levels than we are at present. But as I say, it's a different Tottenham, and I think for a few reasons it could work in a positive for him, because I think obviously playing with Harry Kane, he is a bespoke player, and sort of he does do things that not many can do, in terms of dropping in the holes and playing them balls in behind. He doesn't just score goals. He has got a lot more to his game. So yeah, it is obviously a loss for them, but I think with the quality that they've still got, it is going to be still a very tough game.
Yeah, Dan says, don't get me started on Kane. Kane aside, Spurs are difficult to deal with. The big miss was not going in for Rice. Exactly what we need, and wanted United last night, according to many reports. Yeah, I think if there was the game where Rashford scored in the last minute a couple of seasons ago, and Rice was unbelievably dominant in that game. It was unbelievable, and I remember him afterwards really talking up the stage. Old Trafford, it was the biggest come and get me plea that I've ever seen from a player in the last sort of 5 years. It was dead obvious. But he's gone to Arsenal and singing Arsenal songs apparently and all that sort of stuff. I thought that we'd use Harry Maguire as a make point in that. Before we go, Phil, there is talks of Maguire, the move to West Ham might be back on, fueled by talk that he's not in the squad to travel to the Spurs game, which sort of lends itself to the idea that if it's not West Ham, he's in talks somewhere else to go. We could say this about a number of different things going on at the club at the moment, but you would feel that it's better if it's dealt with swiftly for all parties, especially Maguire. I mean, it's the kind of criticism that he's got in the last week. I mean, I find it a little bit unfair that he signed a contract. The contract, apparently, this is what it comes down to. But he got a bonus for the Champions League that's reflected in a higher wage, and he wants that reflected in a payout. People are saying, "Oh, well, there's no such precedent for that in modern football." There is. It's in many transfers if you choose to look. I mean, Sanchez, when he went to Inter, we literally had to pay to get rid of him because of the contract that was given to him before. So it has been done. I think even Lukaku, there might have been something there, but it's definitely the case with Sanchez. And I don't, on that score, do I blame Maguire for sort of waiting it out and seeing what would happen? No, because it's kind of entitled to him. He's got to take a step down. He's kind of accepting that. Well, he wants the deal that's best for him, and I can understand that. The other side of it is that it is a step down, and you would be reluctant to leave United because once you leave United, you're not going back, and it's a big step for him to make at this moment in time. I'm not going to ask you to comment on all the contractual stuff, Phil, but you've got to agree, right? It's better if it gets dealt with swifter for him and for everyone, really. So, because we don't want. I'm not in the process of buying on players, and I don't really want to do that with Maguire. And I think I'm seeing it. He's a target for abuse anyway, and I'm seeing more of that. So it's better for him, better for everyone if he just sort of gets dealt with swiftly.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. I think for him as a player, he obviously wants to be playing football, and if he's not going to be playing regular first team football at Manchester United, then although, as you just touched on there, you are reluctant to leave the club because of everything the club stands for and everything that comes with it. I think from a professional and a personal standpoint, you need to, look at yourself and as I say, you will want to be playing regular football in terms of keeping his place in the England setup, keeping himself match fit and just, there's nothing worse really than, sitting on a bench and not feeling like you're part of the, team, and he's been getting a little bit of abuse and all that kind of stuff. I think if he goes somewhere now, if it is West Ham or wherever he goes, it's a fresh start for him. He can, be excited about, getting his career back on track. He's probably going to be a regular starter, you would think, if he's going to move to somewhere that's a little bit lower down. And yeah, that there's nothing better than playing games of football. So I think it's the right time for him. As you say, it's best for both parties. He's not really going to be in the manager's plans, with everyone being fit. So yeah, if we can get a little bit of money back for him and, put that towards another player, and he can go on and, kick on with his own career, then as you say, that's the best thing for both parties.
Yeah, agreed. Right, well, so that's us for this week. Short one this week because we don't have Lee to sort of keep the side bubbling over with conversation. Phil and I, straight to the point. Yeah, good result against Wolves. Not a great performance. Onana did well. Spurs, tricky prospect at the end. We'll give you a little bit more conversation than that. Phil and I will be back next week, hopefully with Lee, maybe even with Dave as well. I know Dave's meant to be over. I don't know if he'll be with me for it. Hopefully he will. And we'll be back. Well, Dave and I will be back with Paul on Monday morning. If you've watched live on YouTube or Facebook, please subscribe, like as well, and leave a review on the platform you're listening on if you're listening on the audio podcast. Even if you're not listening, if you're watching it live on YouTube and you've got the audio podcast downloaded, please go and give us a review on that because it really helps us out on there. We'll be back next week, guys. Thanks a lot for your time and stay safe, stay well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.